Hey crafty friends, today's project are gnome jar toppers. So you can fill a jar full of nice yummy things and add this cute gnome on top. This is a no-sew project, so it is really up my alley. So I'm going to make this cone. This cone is 8 inches from the corner of your paper. You would use a compass to kind of give you that curved edge, and you would cut that out. And I will show you how I roll that up on the next gnome. I'm going to show you 2 gnomes and then a third one already finished. I have this fabric here that I'm lining up. I'm going to be using some Aleene's craft glue or I think it's just Aleene's tacky glue, that's what it is, and a tiny bit of hot glue under the fabric. I don't want to use too much hot glue because I don't want it to be lumpy under the fabric. I'm lining the fabric up on the front. I know I didn't bring it all the way down to the front, but you're not going to see that because we're going to have the gnome beard and everything covering that up. So this fabric is really pretty. Again, this is a no-sew project because I'm not a sewer. And something like this, I need it to be a very quick craft. I will say though, figuring out how to cut a cone to a specific size is not an easy task. Me and my son spent like an hour, and he has a very mechanical mind, and we just had to tried to get it figured out, and we finally did. But let me tell you what, it was quite the journey. So I'm going to use a little bit of the Aleene's tacky glue to adhere this side down. I'm going to trim this up a little bit nicer, but I will fold this over so it has a nice edge. I will use a little bit of this glue here, fold it over. So this is where all of you wonderful people that know how to sew would sew something like this, but that's just not who I am. So we're going to fold that over, and then we can fold it over, and then we have a nice seam on the back. I am not going to trim the extra piece of fabric that's off of the top, and you do want that extra piece, and you will see why in just a little bit. So make sure that is all nice and lined up. Make sure everything is smoothed down. Like I said, I didn't want it to be bumpy. I found this fabric when we were getting the gnome's beard. We were standing in line to get it cut, and I saw this fabric, and it was super inexpensive. This one and the fabric for the gnome at the very end that I've already completed was so cute. And then the next gnome will be like a Christmas tree gnome. Then we got this, it's not really fur, it's just kind of fluffy, but this is going to be for the brim of his hat. Here's his little beard that we cut. We kind of trimmed it into a triangular type shape. He also has a mustache and little pieces that will go on the side. Now I will say, off camera, after this project was done, I did have to add some more pieces to the back of him because you could see some of the fabric. I didn't like that, so I wanted hair covering everything, but I already had these pieces cut for this project, so I didn't want to stop and pull that whole mess out because it's messy cutting that beard. You're going to have little beard gnomes everywhere, or gnome beards, not beard gnomes, gnome beards everywhere. So I adhered that down, and if you noticed, I only put the hot glue at the top. I want to be able to lift up the brim of his hat because this is where we're going to tuck his beard, his mustache, and his hair, and then his nose. So I'm making sure that the beard is centered, tucking it up under that brim. I did get some of my glue. I will say I added glue to the whole top edge of that. I wasn't paying attention. I only should have added it to one edge, tucked it under, and then kind of worked my way around because it was kind of messy. But this is how those little pieces will stick underneath. We just kind of cut some ahead of time, but you could measure it and cut it after. But this is just what we did based off of our first one that we made. When I say our, my son helped me make this. We spent a day making our first little gnome, going up to the store, getting things, and it was a lot of fun. It was nice to hang out with him, and like I said, his brain is very mechanical and understands things that my brain does not. So here's the mustache. This one's a little bit on the thicker side. I should have made a little bit of a thinner one, but it still is super cute. You will see the other two. They have a little bit of a thinner mustache, but you do just kind of form this hair. It reminds me of something out of like a Dr. Seuss movie. So I'm going to tuck that mustache under the brim. I found these wood beads just natural colored wood beads. So you could find any color wood beads at my local craft store. And then we're going to tuck that under the edge of his brim for his nose. So some more hot glue here. And when you're tucking it under the brim, definitely push it up far so the brim has like a wrinkle in it, so it looks like it's sitting on top of his nose. So I'm gonna add a little more glue, push that up a little bit higher, and then we have that look. But he is so darling. Okay, so I didn't close the fabric at the top. It still has a hole, and down the cone, so I'm adding a piece of baker's twine or hemp cord down. I'm going to grab it with my hand. I'm just going to adhere it with a giant glob of hot glue. Now these cones are measured for a little 8-ounce round jar. I think the top measures 2.5 or 3 inches across the top of the jar. So that's what this is measured for. So obviously if it was a taller one, you could get away with that, but you're not even going to see the jar from the front when you have the gnome topper on it. But you definitely would fill it with treats and goodies, and this is a really fun, cute neighbor gift or just to decorate your own house. I was testing out which beads I wanted, so I'm using 2 green and 1 white. I'm going to tie a knot at the bottom. I tied like a triple knot so the beads would not fall down. And then remember at the beginning I said don't trim the excess fabric off because we're going to fold it down and glue it kind of to the side of the hat. So I'm going to trim that excess off. I'm going to make sure that the fabric up there looks nice, that you don't have any raw funky edges, and then a little bit of liquid glue. You could fold it down to the front, to the back, to the side, wherever you wanted it to be. And then we have this cute little guy here. I'm going to add 2 of these wooden snowflakes to his hat. I felt like he needed a little something extra. So I'm going to lay him down. You can kind of get a look at how cute he is. I love that fabric. It's such a fun fabric. But look at how darling he is. Oh my gosh, I love him. And he just sits right on top of your jar, nice and secure. You do not have to adhere him down because he goes down most of the way down the jar. And then you just fill it up with a bunch of treats. Okay, let's get to our next gnome. Now I saw a person do this. I will try to find her account again and link down below. I don't know her name. It was in a completely different language, and her idea was with felt for this. So I'm going to try to find her again because it was just a brief something that I found. So here's that cone I had, again, 8 inches from the corner. I trimmed a little bit of the top off. I'm starting at the top, working my way down. At the bottom, you're going to have about 1.5 inches overlap on the paper. This is a thicker cardstock. This is a 110-pound cardstock. I didn't want it to be wimpy cardstock, so I would definitely go with a thicker one to hold up to it sitting on top and you having your fabric wrapped around it. So I'm making sure it has a nice round cone shape after gluing it. This one I'm going to do the beard first because we are going to be using felt on this guy. We're going to make him look like his hat is a Christmas tree. So here's his cute little beard. I lined it up. I'm going to hold it in place. This is what I should have done on the first one, is add a little bit of hot glue one side and then hot glue the other side. Then we can add his mustache, his cute mustache. Make sure that is nice and center. That's going to go right on top. And then we're going to add his little side pieces. Again, this one will need some more all the way around, but I will cut those off camera. But you can imagine what that's going to look like. Let's put that in place. Just combing out his little hair because it's so darling. I just set him on the jar because it's easy to, work on him. So I had a big circle. It was bigger than this. I drew a spiral and then I cut around those lines. So now I have this felt, this green felt. Again, this is the cheaper felt from the craft store. Then you're going to kind of pull it gently, some decent pressure, and then kind of twist it. And it's going to give it this wavy edge, which is going to help give it this layered Christmas tree look. I wasn't careful with how far apart my cutting was. I tried to keep it fairly even, but it's a little bit uneven in some areas, but I think that that's okay. That's kind of the charm. So I'm starting on the back seam. My first layer is right above his beard. I'm going to lay that directly onto that because I want to be able to tuck his nose right underneath it and lift up that first layer of the tree. So I'm just going to glue this around. And this will overlap. And as I go, I will also kind of pull and twist to adjust to make sure that it really has a good Christmas tree layered look. So you can see that my glue is kind of right above there. I do end up adding my glue a little bit higher up. So you can see, I don't know, maybe that's a 1/2 inch or so above the other area where I have the felt. So just going around, making sure that I'm overlapping the top of the felt underneath. That's the most important thing, but you want some space so that way you can see the layers of the tree. I had a lot of felt left over because I did a big circle. I probably did an 8-inch circle of felt and then was cutting around. So I sped this up a little bit, but you guys can see and kind of get the idea. I'm just kind of pulling and twisting on those pieces, making sure that everything looks good. And this is so cute. This is a very, very playful gnome, and I love it. That piece got a little wonky, but I'm not overly concerned. And I was just trying to figure out how to finish off the top. Really, I didn't bring it to a perfect point, but you could. I was kind of playing around with trying to decide what I want or what I wanted, but I did leave it a little bit open on the top. We're not going to have anything hang out from this guy, but I do have some other fun decorations that we're going to put on top that I found at Joann's when I was there shopping for the rest of the gnome stuff. So now that that's trimmed, I'm going to again pull and twist the layers, even though it's already adhered on here, just to lift it up a little bit more, and that's going to really give that layered Christmas tree look. But I just think this is so cute. When I saw it, was so darling. Okay, isn't that cute? Now let's do his wooden nose. I'm going to tuck that under right in the center of his mustache, but underneath that tree there, so it has to sit on top of his nose. Now, I found these cute Christmas lights at Joann's when I was looking down the ribbon aisle. I have it just temporarily hooked at the top with like a little pin. It kind of came with the lights. Just making sure I get everything lined up. I will show you guys here in just a second. Once I get it spaced evenly, I didn't want it down too close over his nose, but I wanted a nice good spacing. So I feel like that's really good. And I'm just going to start adhering some of these lights in certain areas. I did not need to adhere all of them because once you have kind of the top, the bottom, and a few pieces in the middle, it's not going to go anywhere. But if you feel like you need to adhere it down under each one, I mean, obviously the more the better. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. So just a little bit under each of the lights where I guess where it looked maybe a little more loose and it could possibly move, that's where I'm going to adhere it. Now I didn't have a star for the top, so I definitely used something else, but it's my favorite, so it works. But you could do a paper star or anything like that. That would be really cute. But look at how cute he is. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more glue to a few more little pieces. And I just think he's so darling. I love all the gnomes, but I think this one is my favorite. And I love the fabric on the one that I'm going to show you at the end that I've already done off camera as my sample at the beginning. Okay, let's put him back on the jar. I'm going to add a snowflake on the top. That is going to be his tree topper, so just a little bit. He just kind of slides in the top here. Let's take a look at how cute he is with his little mustache. So his mustache was a little bit thinner, which I think looks better. But look at how fun he is. Let me bring in the other one. I love this Nordic type print. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. I added some green beads and a snowflake to his topper, so he's created more like the first one. But isn't he darling? Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching this project. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday. Bye.